Morning at NTV. We are live from Kampala Serena Conference Center. It's such a very beautiful day. It's a Friday, and given that it's a Friday, Uganda joins the rest of the world to commemorate the World Culture Day on Friday, 21st, May 21st, 2021, which is annually commemorated. Now, to speak to us about this and more, we have Mr. Francis Ojede, the Executive Director of the Uganda National Culture Center. Then we have Juliana Naum Akorio, the Director Gender at the Ministry of Gender and Social Development. With us again, we have Andrew Kagwa, our resident arts panelist. It's Morning at NTV. If you want me to tap into what you think, the hashtag is Morning at NTV. I'll find you there. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning.
Happy Culture Day. I really want to thank Juliana. Juliana really moved up to the task today, except for some of us who are still in the. How does it feel to be in a Culture Day?
Wow, it's so beautiful because you enjoy what has made us what we are.
Wow.
Culture is the thing which is the value, and it trains us to keep time. It trains us to be productive. It trains us to feel good about ourselves. So as you see me, I feel good to dress
Julian,
culturally.
your culture teaches you to teach time. We come from two different countries there. Because the time culture in Africa, it's a time shocking. And I think that's a conversation we must have. But looking at the women, today as we're celebrating the World International Culture Day, what does this day mean for the women, especially the issue of emancipation?
Thank you very much. This day of culture, we look at it as a day for one, identity. As women, our cultures value the role of women in community because women are the ones that support the growth of the culture sector. Women have contributed a lot in the terms of the sector. Let's look at the crafts, for example. They are the ones who are making an income to support their families. From that income, they are able to take their children to school, and they are able to support even the men. Nowadays, many men are not doing much, and it is the women who are supporting the family as we speak.
Have you tried to amplify that conversation that men take up their roles as well, or it's something we can talk on another day?
We shall talk on it another day. We've been talking to them about their roles.
Oh, yes.
They should really do their roles so that it is complementary, because what men do is supported to what women do. But if you leave it as one gender, then it is a challenge. It's
very draining. Well, joining us again, Kagwa here. Kagwa, today is a Culture Day. What does it mean to you?
I think I would say what I usually tell people, that culture and art is the way of life. It's the way of life. Like we live with culture, and each and every day we learn different cultures. We drop some ones that are a bit archaic, but I would say having a day to celebrate culture, celebrate who we are, is very important. I mean, we get to appreciate the differences we have and those things that make us unique.
You're being modest here. Let me go a little bit further. Does our art, the one we play, the one we have in Uganda, depict our culture?
Geez, that's so hard.
I'm digging deep because you're being nice.
It depicts a certain part of, you need to appreciate the fact that, for instance, in the 60s, we had a lot of influence from, say, Congolese, and I think in the early 90s, we had a lot of influence from the Jamaicans.
Yes.
When you look at art, if I'm to be specific about music, we picked a lot from them. On another day, I would say it's non-depicting our culture, but then on another day, I would say maybe we picked up that and it became part of us.
You're using the same word. We are picking. What is us? What do we stand for?
The dangers is the more we keep picking things, is the more we keep forgetting who we are
lose
as a person.
Wow.
And we lose ourselves.
Well,
just to add to a great extent, yes, people are promoting their culture. The most important is language. People are allowed to speak their language in Uganda and freely, whether at office, whether outside in the public space or in the private sphere. That's one case of identity. The way people dress culturally is part of their culture.
Like you, very smart.
The other bit is we promote our traditional food, which is a value. But the highest and the most commonest are the social practices. Social practices relate with activities to do with the naming of children, to do with the marriage ceremonies, all those cultural practices, even the crafts You go to Masaka Road, for example, there is that traditional knowledge of making the craft. And even in other communities, there is pottery in West Nile, there is the making of the stool in Karamoja, but also look at the architecture. The housing is still traditional in most of the rural areas. That shows you that the culture is still on the greatest extent, although the challenges are still there.
The challenges, we're going to talk about them. Francis Ojede,
yes.
Your organization, the Uganda National Culture Center, what is the plan like today? What does this day mean to you? Because you're at the helm of it, and given that you're the executive director, if Padre Masemi was here, he wouldn't give me an answer. So I need it from you.
Thank you. I want to first and foremost thank you for hosting us, and more so on this very important day, the World Culture Day. To us, that is our day, because one, we are the institution responsible for culture. Now, when you look at it, we are saying that we want to celebrate. We also want to make sure that people understand what culture is. And today we are going to be at the National Theatre, and we want to amplify this day by, first of all, there's going to be a celebration there. We're going to have a symposium, which we're going to discuss issues to do with culture. We're also going to have, we're going to have all sorts of cultural items displayed, and therefore speaking to the different aspects. We're going to have it at the National Theatre, and we're going to have a mini, performance, because we're not allowed to do for now the performance. Because of the numbers. Yeah, but of course, what we're going to do is we're going to have all this on the media platforms, so that everybody from their homes are going to be able to enjoy, can follow. Like we said earlier on, I think that is the trend because of COVID, because we are now saying that most of the things that the products that we're going to be producing must be consumed by people from their homes or from wherever they are. And that's what we're going to do today. We are happy that it is now almost 2 years that we have not been physically meeting. But we also want to thank God that we're still there and we're still doing, because ordinarily we would be home. But the institution is still running with difficulties. But I also want to say that because of this World Culture Day, we are investing as an institution. We're investing in the digital platforms. And we are saying that we together, like my senior said, the director, we're working together with NITA to make sure that we have a digital platform. And this is the way to go. We are also trying to invest in terms of studio recording, so that we link up with you people. We do the normal recordings from there, link up with you, and the things are aired, and everybody. And we're talking about real culture, and therefore we're talking of people's identity. Like, for instance, in Uganda, our values. If, for instance, I come from Lango, what is there in Lango? I mean, the language itself speaks for me. The kind of dressing, the music, the dance, the type of food we eat. I mean, the balls, the malakwangs, and the, those type of food that we eat is clear to us, because it's distinct to our area. We also have the kind of dressing that we use. So these are all things that we are talking about in terms of promotion of our culture. Now, this is spread throughout the country. You realize that the Baganda will have their songs, their dances, they have their dresses, they have their language which they're proud of. We'll also have the Basoga in a similar way. So we're spreading. If you go to Bunyoro, you'll also want to see what they have. This is what we are going to promote today, the diversity, and we want to bring them in one place. Okay. Now,
Francis, that brings me then to another question. This is at a national level, right?
Yes.
Now, at a regional level, what are the organizations like to celebrate a day like this? I really want to understand, because we are in COVID-19. Yes, we are all going to celebrate this virtually, but do we have regional partners who say that in the Kigezi sub-region, these celebrations are going to be here, in the Busoga sub-region, in the Bukedi sub-region? Do we have that kind of approach, or we're going to depend on the national celebrations at the National Theatre? And the ones who would like actually to come through, are they paying, or it's for free? It's a culture day. A culture we celebrate freely, but because it has a tax there, operational. I want to be clear. I need clarity on the interest damage.
It's very interesting. I will start with the last one of
Please.
paying or not paying. You know, ordinarily, we wanted to develop a culture of economy so that people can be paying things that they consume. But of course, we're also cognizant of what has been happening, COVID and so forth. So there are certain things that we'll have to subsidize a bit. For this particular thing, particular event, we are not asking people to pay, but we're asking them to use their data to be able to consume. So they're using their data, which is payment really.
Very much.
So use their data to be able to consume. But people who are coming at the National Theatre, it was free. They will not be able to pay anything.
But just to also say, in Gulu, we have a House of Talent.
Yes.
Which is already organizing a live streaming performance to
Nice.
be able to link up with the national celebrations today at 6.
Yes.
But we've also encouraged the other institutions, like we have the community museums. We have community museums in Moyo. We have a community museum in Jinja, and other community museums to have these activities celebrated at their own museums. Then we also have the traditional cultural institutions whom we've encouraged that this is your day, this is when you promote your values and promote the cultural diversity. So all these cultural institutions are supposed to have their activities at different times. Also the district community development officers, these are the officers who implement the activities of government at the lower local government level. So we've encouraged them to have lectures, to have performances, whatever they can in their own ability, and whatever is relevant to their community so that they can promote this day. And of course, annually, we've not been charging people since we started commemorating this day in 1999.
We have a song they're playing by Bobby Wine, says that Ndimuna Uganda. Let's just listen a little bit to some of these words. I understand we're streaming, then we won't actually have that song. But just to bring it a little bit closer, Kagwa, from where you work from, back in the day, remember when it was a culture day in a day like this, our HR would come and say, tomorrow people, it's a culture day. People would come in kanzus, others would. But with this kind of thing, I just walked in the way I am, and I mean, the cultural age, see? Do you feel that our working spaces, we are not intentional about our culture in one way or the other?
One thing I will tell you is that some people are very intentional, others are not. I believe some people do not even know today's World Culture Day. Maybe they are discovering right now.
Oh, no, I knew, but I was waiting because I could turn up in a kanzu. And our broadcasting policies say we do that when the kabaka is either. They're like, now you have to, you can't go beyond your supervisors. You have to be sure clarity is key here.
Truth is that in Uganda, I will not say today, because I feel like it has been around for some time. In Uganda, there is very little respect for culture. I mean, it's not just the culture of the traditions, but culture, even appreciating things. Just if you look at how people wake up and they're like, we think the museum is too old, we should remove it. Like we have very, very little appreciation to culture, history, or those things that define us. Like we keep trying to change things around us. And that's why it's not surprising for me that there are very many offices where maybe it's not a policy today to wear a kanzu or your traditional attire, or where people actually totally have no idea that today is even a World Culture Day.
Francis, have you seen some clips online about the introduction ceremonies we've had in this country?
Yes.
And how they have shifted from the traditional cultural space to God knows where. What are you doing about that?
I'm happy that you are raising this very important thing. I first of all, I would like to give you my personal perspective.
Please.
I participated in my younger sister's introduction. And obviously, some of those things you're talking about came up. The young girls had organized and they wanted a lot of things that were not really cultural. And I was able, because I'm a bit elder to her, I was able to speak to her and say, well, you would do that, I have no problem, because there is diversity. But I would also feel that the cultural thing that we have must be done. And we did it, so it had to be a mix. She had to also explore what she wanted. because ordinarily she also has a marriage issue of another culture, so we also had to respect that culture. So the diversity which we're but we made sure that ours was also done. But I've seen in town, there are certain things that some more of import. We have so much of the imported cultures than our own. I don't have a problem of mixing, but I have a problem that you import everything so that it overrides yours. And that is common now. And I see it a lot, and I think it is something that we need to do something about. But of course it is about a mindset change. The young generation of today, the way they look at culture is not the way you and me look at it. Because for them, when you look at our cultures, the way it is, they look at it as a cake. It's an old thing. And they want to have a modern, thing.
Okay.
And therefore, to marry the two, we need to be able to speak to them, to be able to make sure that they understand that this is the genesis where you come from. This is how you grew up, and you need to sustain this. As much as you will want to blend to the other one, you need to keep this. Because it is where it is identity. It is really where you start from and where you're going to end in. And I see that a lot, and it is not only the foreign cultures, but even within. Even within, I would tell you, the more of the Kiganda culture has penetrated a lot of other
regions.
Yes, it has.
So just to highlight
one thing I would say about what he's talking about is how we got there is, I think, partly the parents missed that role of making their children appreciate culture.
The culture.
I mean, when I was growing up, when I was in school, it used to be so cool not to know how to speak Luganda.
Oh dear.
Like, a child would come up, they speak very good English, and they struggle with Luganda, and everyone is looking at them like, wow. So it was very okay not to know how to speak Luganda, not to know so much about
your culture.
You remember there was even that time in the entertainment industry where a person that used to sing a lot in Luganda was called Loco.
Very much so.
So like that, I think how we got to this place is someone somewhere failed to make people appreciate their culture.
So the parenting models were not even cognizant of this.
So just to add on what Peter said, what we've done. One, we've developed what they call the parenting guidelines. And the
I came to the ministry, I got a copy, and I shared with my wife.
Thank you.
That's very good.
I needed to know where we are going as a country.
So the parenting shows you things, values, knowledge, and skills that you need to pass on
to your children, yes.
But two, we are also helping the communities to document their culture. We've done it for the Alur, for the Acholi, Basongora, the Ik of Karamoja. Nice. And now we are continuing to still document, because once you document, then those positive aspects of what we can promote can come on. And I wanted to highlight a very good positive aspect of culture, which we can continuously promote with others, and then we shall go back to where we are supposed to be in terms of productivity and promotion of culture. That is about the value of culture and nutrition. For example, there are very good cultural practices in some communities that encourage food that has protein. For example, the growing of millet is a cultural practice, and how you prepare it and keep it safe and so on. In Karamoja, for example, there is a tree that they burn the leaves and the stem, and they put it in milk, and it preserves that milk for over 3 years.
Julia.
I tasted that milk last 2019 when we had the cultural day.
And it has been served for how long?
It stays for 3 years. So those are aspects that promote our culture in terms of the knowledge and skills, which young people need to know, which they can also use then to be able to make more products and sell to other people and get an income. So documenting, but we've also encouraged the communities to have cultural days in their
That's the thing.
They actually do have, the Alur do have, the people from Kochi organize cultural days, and then we have Karamoja, which has consistently had it for 9 times for the last 9 years, except the last year when there was COVID. So in that, they try to teach young children what to do, and the children are saying, we want to learn, what can we do, help us. How do we make traditional Kajong Karamoja food?
I hear you.
So all that
It's underway.
Certain ways of promoting culture.
Something about the regional. I really want to commend you that the region's already up on board and they're actually up and running. But when you talk about culture again, I want to go to something he alluded to and say that when you import a lot of things, you get mixed up in the way.
Yeah.
The parenting key, rather the parenting factor here is very critical.
Yes.
He spoke about vernacular. I believe all of you was something when we were at school for speaking vernacular.
Yes.
When you're in school, was something.
Yes, yes.
Now, me at my home, we had no English at home.
Yeah.
My dad said, "You're Uganda and you're going to speak so." But my neighbors were Kumams, and I used to play with the Kumams. So I picked,
You also pick Kumam.
I picked the Kumam language than the Luganda language.
Yes.
And because those were the people I used to interact with, now my dad had to say things and they had to interpret for me, said, "No, we have to limit." Because he's taking a lot of the other language. But I appreciated that. Do you think, from where you are, Francis, the school models can help us appreciate culture as Ugandans? I'll give you an example. My father took me to Mwiri College. I learned the Busoga culture, the Eastern, then took me to Kigezi, then brought me to Masaka, then back to Kampala. Can that model still work in this day and age to make people appreciate of what we are as a country?
Yes, I think you're raising a very fundamental issue. Actually, I would give you additional information. In India, if you finish the university, you don't work in your region. It is a policy. Once you finish, you don't work in your region. The region you come from, you don't.
Wow.
They look at it and say, this person comes from northern region, automatically northern region you don't work. You work in other regions. And that's to make sure that you're able to
curate
the
curate, regions.
and that's to bring the national value in you. So you don't you have to understand another area very well. And because where your home is, you already understood it, you know it. So you do that, and that makes you unified. And in terms of culture, you know, a culture in diversity would be promoted. I am a product of that, what you've just said. I was telling somebody very interesting that in primary school, I studied in 7 primary schools.
Wow, you were on a tour.
Yes, 7, and in 7 years. I started from Acholi. My father was there. I came to Lango. My father was working there. Unfortunately, we went into exile. We were in a place in Nairobi. We went to Embu.
Yes,
I came to Mumias.
Wow.
Then came back to Lango again.
Yes.
Now that in primary, 7 schools. And you can see the different cultures that I was able to appreciate.
Yes.
Then I came back in the secondary school. I was in Lango. Then all of a sudden I find myself in Mbarara and in Tare. Different culture. So you can see the diversity. I appreciate cultures and the diversity that it has.
Yes.
And the value that it brings. Because each and every culture has a value proposition. And you're able to, I was able to learn the language. I was able to learn how they do their things.
Survival skills.
Yeah, you have to. What the type of drink they do. I mean, I appreciate the kind of food they eat, the kind of way I attended a lot of weddings and ceremonies that they would. And so you can see the diversity.
I went in the north and they made us kneel for, I think like it was a long distance.
Yes.
And it had rained.
Yes.
And that's the relevance. Why did we have to kneel all the way? They explained. I was like, wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Now that is culture.
Just to add a little bit more, practically what is happening now to ensure that people learn about each other's culture.
Yes.
We have encouraged a lot of cultural exchanges. Like you pick the people from Karamoja, take them to Gulu. Gulu has a very strong justice traditional system.
Yes.
So we pick those people to help them learn how their system is.
Nice.
But also when you learn about the traditional justice system, you are not fixed on that alone. There are many other things you learn.
You spread through.
Yes, but also for Karamoja, for example, they also have a strong cultural elder system where the elders meet. And I want to link it again with issues that are really happening now in the country. For example, climate change. In Karamoja, the elders meet in a place where they try to preserve the environment. I just want to tell you about the linkage between culture and sustainable development, either climate change or
that
food
falls under
or
SDGs.
poverty. Yes. So culture is really very strong, and we are trying to encourage people to visit one another, appreciate, and the cultural institutions, since they are the ones that communities respect and listen to, are actually doing that. They visit one another, appreciate, so that when you meet, because the objective of this day also is to learn to live with one another.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Andrew, when you look at this, let's look at the challenges of culture. The evils that come with culture. Female genital mutilation. The government has pronounced itself again and again about it, but for some cultures it's still going on. We have the issue of the imbalu, even when they try to actually tell the ones who take through the roles that they can maybe sterilize the knives and whatever, but they say for culture purposes, this is the man, and he does not have medical expertise and how to, you know, to treat the bacterial infection in case of any. And then we have domestic violence as a result of a culture where the man said, she didn't kneel down while greeting me, and before you know they're exchanging blows. How do you mitigate that, Andrew?
I think these are things, when it comes to the ministry, those are some of the things they've been really strong on. Because most of the times as a person who comes from the art side, I feel like we get mixed up a lot because they are concentrating on that more than anything. But I feel like information has to be laid out. Like, one, culture is good, but as we go on growing up, as we learn new things, we need to realize that if a culture is suppressing the rights of someone, maybe that culture has to be dropped. I mean, there were times where sharing a woman, I mean, when someone died, like someone would inherit the woman.
Automatically, if Andrew, you die and you're my brother, your wife becomes my wife.
Yeah, but then
the dynamics of the diseases and all.
Yeah,
change
they notice that this part of culture is not good. It should be dropped. I think it's one of the things that need to be pushed. Like, if a culture is suppressing someone's rights, we definitely have to drop it.
Francis, with all the evils that are happening with culture, because the more we celebrate culture, a couple of things trump on people's rights, on children's rights, on women's rights, on men's rights. What is UNCC doing that while we're promoting this, the other hand is equally sensitizing and creating awareness at all layers that we are in tandem with the agenda?
I think the UNCC works very closely with the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, because that's our mother ministry. And as you say, there are lots of policies that have been developed that promote positive cultures. We are trying to look at positive cultures, and we want to promote it. And we're also saying that the negative ones need to be, you know, we need to really drop them, because otherwise, if you continued with them, then you're moving nowhere. We've also been able to do a lot of interactions with cultural leaders, and we've been interacting with them and talking and sensitizing them about the positive cultures that they need to promote, and the need for them to drop the negative cultural practices, because that is where sometimes we get criticism from many people. And they start looking at culture as a bad thing because of a few negative negative cultural values. And I think sensitization is key, and then policy shifts that is being mainly promoted by our ministry. And then for us, our role will be to try and popularize those policies, to popularize the positive aspects, and so that we're able to all coexist and we're able to move in the right direction, and then be able to appreciate each other. Because if a culture suppresses a particular group, then it is no longer a good culture.
Oh, yes.
Because really you're looking at everybody should be able to be happy, to enjoy, to celebrate.
Shared prosperity.
Yes, and so if one side is suppressed and another, it's a beginning of war. The other side will now start fighting and say, no, we don't want these things of cultures.
Indeed.
So for us to be able to all benefit and enjoy this culture, we need to respect each other.
Actually, the thing is, very many cultural leaders have been on board when it comes to supporting positive culture. But my experience in Karamoja one time was that the leaders would tell people, this is bad, please do not do it, and then people would try to do it in secret. Yeah, so a lot of information needs to go out.
So what I would like to add there is we need to have alternative means of livelihood. Some of them were using it as a means of livelihood. So alternative means of keeping them away from doing what they used to do is one very good option.
The bad ones.
They used to do
bad cultures.
So if we have alternative means of engaging them now in some aspects of their culture which are not infringing on human rights, I think it would be okay. And they could become teachers, for example. These people can become teachers. They can be productive in the community to teach other women, maybe to produce certain artifacts, and they sell those artifacts. But the other thing which the ministry has done is to develop a male engagement strategy. Male engagement strategy, because we don't want it to look like a women's thing. So what is the role of the men in terms of gender-based violence? Are they passive participants, or they're active participants, or they're silent participants? So this strategy is to help us work together with the men, let the men come on board, and we sort together what the challenge is. Why is it that there's a lot of gender-based violence increasing, especially during this lockdown period? So we've made a popular version for that male engagement strategy. We hope when it is ready, we shall give you and come and talk about it.
We'll need it, but I'm looking at a model that engages someone at the bottom of the pyramid with a clear call to action that they can plug it into the policies that be above them, and then we can have the national agenda in the same direction.
Yes, the national agenda actually comes from down. We don't sit at the center and start developing.
I totally agree. But do they know? Do the Wananchis know that this is what I have to do so that I can plug it into this? Because yes, you could sit with a few of them in the city halls, in the villages, yes, in the village halls, and you talk to them. But I want to understand that this local fisherman or this farmer, does he understand that this is my call to action as a Ugandan with regards to culture? This is what I must protect. This is what I must fight against. This is what I must do. Do they know?
They know, but sometimes they are overtaken by certain situations. For example, many aspects of culture are not economic, many aspects, but they are very good for peaceful coexistence, communication, and nutrition and health. But they don't see so much of the economic, and so they would rather run to go and do the fishing and concentrate on the fishing and stay by the lake or on the waters looking for money from which they can sell the fish and be able to feed their families. So there are many things affecting them.
Let me just sample some feedback offline. Thank you so much those sending feedback on Twitter. It's AT NTV. I'll pick it and read it. Someone says culture diversity means recognizing and accepting that people in society can have different beliefs, traditions, even workplace etiquette. You can know how someone behaves and you say that's that culture. Then someone here says, good morning, Andrew. I really want to commend you for bringing those experts there. You and Francis are global nation trotter scholars. Thank you. He goes on and says that, I'll give an example. Among us, the Ankole, whenever your father was going to visit a particular place, he would go with a boy of the age of 13 to 17. The idea was on his way back home, he would send this boy ahead to announce his arrival. Just in case there was anyone at home disturbing the family peace, you would vacate any time before he comes back. So society has been guarding itself that way. Thank you so much. I didn't know that. No wonder these guys used to go with you. Andrew, can we go together? Okay, now that's interesting. Then Bits on Twitter says, culture is a broad term that encompasses our beliefs, values, behaviors, practices, and our way of being, thereby influencing all our personal, social, professional relations. Then Agatha says, good to have a lady on the panel and the only one representing, and indeed because she's a lady, she knew the day all men on set, shame upon you, you forgot about it, and no wonder you're all, but it's okay. Agatha, listen, this is what I'm saying. culture in diversity. That's what we're trying to say. But she goes on and says that in the Ministry of Gender, Social Development, Labour and Social Development, she says that what is the ministry doing to make sure that these conversations about culture, before even people get married, it is not a must do, but I should be allowed to learn slowly and then I get into it.
Okay, thank you.
That's Agatha.
Very good.
Thank you.
That's good feedback.
Thank you very
That's
much.
online feedback. Be nice, people.
Yes. It's very good. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much, Agatha. What we are doing, for example, is to help the parents to know about marriage. We are developing the family policy.
Okay.
And then we have popularized the parenting guidelines, and we are going to translate it into the local languages. But then at the community level, we have the parish development officer who is in charge of culture, and is the one supposed at the local level now.
Parish, village level.
to
Good thing we're going with the parish model now.
Yes, to translate all these government policies to the person at the lower local government level. So at village level, at parish level, they are supposed now to ensure that this information is passed on, and we are going to train the officers at that level to be able to pass on the information. And we totally agree with you, Agatha. Learning never ends. You continue learning every day.
There were those who were bitter, but I would just remember one of a lady who said that I hope Baganda men are watching and listening to this. Some tribes can be so harsh on us. That's what she said. No offense to the Baganda. I'm a Baganda myself, but where do we draw the line, Francis, that this is an extreme to my culture? I could marry someone from the West. Let me say I'm Chiga. They're not used at kneeling. I mean, they don't kneel. How do we draw the balance that when they get married to us from the Central, that they can, you know, assimilate closely but fit in better? Without us always boasting, no.
I think there used to be a model that, at least in Lango, they used to do. And I know also it happens in Buganda. Before you get married, you have what you call the sengas.
Yes.
I mean, the model that you first, before you even go to meet your husband or your wife, you have some people who take you through. To be able to first of all appreciating marriage. What marriage is itself, and then be able to know that there are dynamics in marriage, there are issues that you're going to find in marriage, and how you should be able to deal with them. And then if it is a mixed sort of marriage, then you are also introduced into a little bit of the culture and what to expect in the other culture, and how you need to behave in that culture, so that it is not a cultural shock for you. So that, you know, there's a level ground for you to be able to get into that culture. Now that used to be done. Unfortunately today somebody just jumps and goes and he wants to start the journey. Now when you want to start the journey that way, then definitely you're going to hit a rock, because there are certain things that you're not expecting and you go and find. And you think it is a bad thing, yet it is something that people do it for a reason. So you needed to first of all understand the reason why it is done. I mean, talk of the Baganda kneeling, for instance. I know people give pros and cons about kneeling, but when I read through and I was able to appreciate, you know that when you kneel down, as both a man and a woman, because in Buganda if it happens, it's a sign of respect. And you want to show your elders, your people, that you feel for them. And in a way, it also bestows on a child or on a lady that you have a relationship where the other person must be respected, and you will reciprocate. Because once you've done that, then the person feels happy, get up, happy. So the relationship starts, and a mutual good relationship. Now, if you don't do, then immediately the person, look this.
What kind of culture?
What kind of this? So the relationship starts getting into problem because you have not been able. So there is need to appreciate why some of these things are done. Because they all have meanings.
They have reasons.
So you need to understand the meaning of why these things are done. And that's where, if you don't understand the meaning, you'll definitely look at it from a negative. Of course, I'm not saying all of them are good. There are others that are really, really extreme, and they need to be dropped. And the dropping needs to also be done within the cultural setups, so that within the cultures, people discuss it, the leadership, and they say, this one here, and that's where Andrew comes in and say, the leaders now, there are certain things that they say, we don't want this. And indeed, that's the pronouncement. And they're saying that culture should go. But some people still do it underground. And they still do it. And I think we need to be able to sensitize the people. We need to tell people the good things that come out of certain cultures and the bad things that come out of them. With that, you realize that then the mix of the they can be very good. And for me, I like mix. It's good because then you're bringing the cultural diversity and exposure.
And Andrew, let me talk this about you. Do you think language could be a very good tool to amplify our cultures?
I think that
at all levels, at all levels.
That should always be the beginning. That should always be the beginning. It's at the moment it's so sad that we do not give children a chance to learn language even at home, because these days the parents will be talking to.
Let me give you an instance. We at home. I'm with Francis. He's from West Nile, and I'm with Julian. He's from the West. And at school, you're studying English. You get home, Papa is talking his, Mama is talking his. At school, they're feeding you another. So how are we going to navigate through that? Can we find a model from your school of thought? How best we can harmonize that?
Okay,
because
so you're looking
that is a juxtaposition most of us are in because we have intermarried. We shouldn't underscore that. But how do we move in that lane?
I think for me...
Let him first respond to this, because these are the people who have crossed borders.
Okay, in my experience, it's always about striking a balance.
Indeed.
Like one, you need to appreciate whichever language that person is speaking, and you need to appreciate, of course, you already appreciate yours. I've seen many families where they've tried to strike a balance between these two languages before introducing the English. Like they let a child learn a bit about this and a bit about this.
So they gel later.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I would like to say that culture is really first and foremost for dialogue. So the parents at home should be able to dialogue on which is the language they should first communicate in. And the first language that you are supposed to teach our young children is your mother tongue language.
So here you spend more time with the kids. I'm never at home.
But whoever is there, you can agree that this is the language. Dialogue first. Once dialogue is there, is key. But what is important now is once you have a local language or a mother tongue language to your young children, it is key for your future. One, language strengthens creativity.
True.
And then two, it helps also in retention of what children learn, whether they learn in English in the later years, but also helps in participation in future activities. So we must be able to share the benefits of having the language at that level. In some communities, language has also helped people to get higher income than others, having more than one mother tongue language.
Very much
so. It's important that we talk about those positive benefits of language at family level.
Okay. The conversation is about the World Culture Day, and it's culture diversity for dialogue and development. And we see how it goes. Junior says, a very great morning, Andrew. This is a very great conversation. Talk about that incident. Good thing. Having two people from different tribes married, and then they have to raise children. The best way for me, I think, is clear. We segmented days that this day we are speaking this language. This is John's opinion, though. We're speaking this language, and on this day we're speaking this. Then he gives an example. For example, he can speak language from school Monday to Friday, but Saturday we start with Nyankore, and Sunday we come back to Luganda, then we go back. That is John's opinion.
Let me tell you something very.
The dangers in that.
Something very interesting in that, and I had that experience. That issue of language, I came from Lango with my language in Lango. Of course, I learned Swahili. I learned a little bit of some languages in Kenya.
The commands and
a lot of language in Kenya. Then I come here. I go to Ankole. I learn Lunyankole a bit. I come to Kampala. I learn Luganda a bit. Now, the language overdose removes the languages from
That's the thing.
and it is also a challenge. So as much as we want to do so much of like the person saying on Monday we learn this, on Tuesday, there's also going to be an overdose and confusion. So I think we just need to do a systematic way of trying to make it symbolic. Somebody would just learn it in a way, but just encourage the traditional languages to be spoken over the weekend maybe, but don't restrict and say speak Kumam today, Luganda tomorrow. It becomes like a, you know, a conveyor belt.
But
so
research has shown that when you teach a young child a particular language from year 0 to 1 to 3 years, that person retains that information in the future.
You cannot speak Kumam and I don't hear you. I've taken years, but when you speak, I'm like, aha, I can actually grasp that. Your last word, Andres, we're finalizing this conversation.
One thing, I think it's very good to have such conversations. My pledge would be to the Ministries of Gender and UNCV. One, I don't think we should only be celebrating culture when this day happens, but I think we should be highlighting these things throughout the year. And then I think we do not need a UNCC that's a place. We need to be the institution it is. We need to be in places. Like I need to see a UNCC when I go to Karamoja, and probably if I go to a certain village in Karamoja, I need to see like a body that represents the UNCC in Karamoja. So in that way, like we can keep this good work going on.
Very good.
Jolina, your last words?
My last words is would like to invite you to commemoration of this day, either physically at UNCC, Uganda National Cultural Center, in particular National Theatre, starting from 9 o'clock up to 1. And then also those who are online, there's a link which we have shared that would like to invite you to be part of this through the virtual discussion. Shall give them an opportunity to contribute. And to say, please, in your home, in your community, in the public spaces, let us do the best we can to promote our culture, and the culture is so diverse.
Okay. Francis, your last words?
Thank you very much. My last words are that today is World Culture Day. Try to do something in regard to culture. If you can dress culturally, please dress culturally. If you can speak your local language today, please speak. If you can try to do some of the cultural activities that you are familiar with, do it. At least do something that is culture. Celebrate it. Make sure that today is a day. And of course, the Director Juliana has mentioned, we have a big day at the National Theatre. Of course, the numbers are a restriction, but we want you to be able to celebrate with us. But more so, I think, in the social media, we have a lot of platforms that you should join. But I can say I am happy that today is a day that we're celebrating culture. And it is worldwide, it is not only here, and everybody today is talking about culture, and it is the diversity that it brings is what I am happy about. And I want to respond to Andrew's comment that on the issue of regional centers, we have already put in plan, and we hope that the government gives us money to set up regional centers as a way of promoting culture in the different areas. And I want to thank you for hosting us.
Very much.
It's been a great day.
We can always have these conversations. Well, coming up, we're going to have a much more conversation, but someone here has actually alluded something that, thanks for the conversation, but you missed one thing, lady and gentlemen. You didn't discuss culture and technology. That's a conversation we're going to have at the National Theatre, because we're looking at the diversity at the different scales. And then the other person tweeted and said, Andrew, you guys didn't hint about some practices within the African cultures that are very weird, and men are always demanding about them, yet they are actually very backward. I won't go into that. Come to the National Theatre, be a part of the bigger conversation. But my colleague Ivan Kamana Walnyoro in Entebbe is actually following up a story where the CAA, the Civil Aviation, is